hit like, and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. This is your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, where we break down the most controversial subjects, the most engaged debates, the most interesting topics going on in the world today. Tonight is no different, family. It's so good to see you all. I'm excited to talk to you all about things going on in the world. It's been a heck of a week. I apologize for not seeing you all yesterday. As you know, I'm having some major back problems. It's pretty much knocked me out. I spent the weekend fighting them. At one point, I was headed to the ER. On Saturday, I couldn't even get off the couch. Sunday, I had to fly to Chicago to speak at St. Sabina Church for Juneteenth. I was excited to do that. Happy and proud to do that. Shout out to Pastor Father Flager out there at St. Sabina for allowing me to give the morning message for Juneteenth and their celebration. Hopefully somebody had hopefully everybody had rather a good Father's Day weekend. I know I did. Shout out to everyone who made that happen. My beautiful children, my wonderful wife, all made that happen. I'm just grateful for a lot. But most importantly, I'm grateful to see you all here. And yes, my back is jacked up. It's very difficult to sit. It's very difficult to walk. It's very difficult to reach. I'm doing all the things. I'm going to physical therapy. I'm going to a chiropractor. I'm going to did acupuncture. Seeing an orthopedist, doing all the things. It was a challenge to get through the weekend. Even today we just recorded a very good day of Joe Budden podcast. It was amazing, great chemistry. Everybody, was there. Everybody was just on the A game as always. It was just fire. But when it's fire, it means you gotta sit there, and so sitting there for hours, it's a beautiful experience, but it's also very painful when you're physically in the boat that I'm in. So I'm excited about so many things, but trying to get to this pain-free space, and right now I am not in a pain-free space. Acupuncture is the shit. People ask me what happened to my back. Exercise, I had some major back issues for a long time, and years of not stretching, not doing yoga, not doing some things that would have made the problems get better have resulted in the problems getting worse. And because I do a lot of training now, been back in the gym, lifting, doing some martial arts, doing some other things, my back is like, oh, word, that's what we on. And so maybe like 2 weeks ago, after being in the gym, my back just was like enough, and I couldn't sleep. I was in so much pain, I couldn't sleep. And then this got progressively worse. And instead of just completely taking the rest, like last week, I snuck back into the gym for a day, and my body again was like, nigga, if you don't stop, you're not gonna be able to do this at all. And I think that's the lesson. And we're gonna get to the stories. Don't worry. We're gonna talk about Randy Fine talking nukes in Gaza. We're gonna talk about the black juror in the Diddy trial was replaced. We're gonna talk the Minnesota Maga shooter. I'm also talking a little bit about Dr. Umar. He tweeted something or posted something on Instagram about the African Hebrew Israelites, offering his support for them in the midst of what's going on in Gaza. And I want to make sure that we have that conversation, because I think it's an important one. Hopefully y'all will be engaged and interested in all of those things. But yeah, if you're over 30, I'm going to say, but definitely 40, and you're in the weight room every day, or you're doing martial arts every day, or regularly, you ain't got to be every day, you just regularly play the long game. If you feel like you waited too long to start, or you waited too long to get back in, or you haven't waited too long, you've been doing it the whole time, but you're still 35, 45, and your body will listen to you hearing that you want to work out, but you got to listen to your body when it says, hey, not today. In other words, they put it differently. Your body will whisper. When your body whispers, listen to it. Because if you don't listen when your body whispers, then your body will start to scream. And when your body starts to scream, it's too late already. And that's where I'm at. My body it do different stuff now than it used to. And I have had to accept that my body's going to do some different stuff. And when you get that little back tweak or your shoulder's a little sore, and you're like, I could do one more set, or you boxing or Muay Thai or judo, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, whatever the fuck you're doing, you know. When you feel like I got one more session in me, one more round, one more spar, one more roll, one more this, one more that, that's when you get jacked up. So please be good to your body. Leave one in the tank. You know what I'm saying? Come back tomorrow with that energy, or 2 days from now, or 3 days from now, whatever your body tells you. But y'all don't go. You ain't got nothing to prove. Somebody asked about the t-shirt. This is the full t-shirt. Fuck ICE, punch Nazis, protect trans folks, save democracy. Go Birds. Yeah, buddy. This one of them ones, man. I like this shirt. It's one of my faves, yo. This one of my faves, yo. Did y'all? We'll talk Caitlin Clark another time, because y'all, it triggers too many people. But I just saw her get hit in the eye, thrown to the floor, and I'm like, yo, this is an interesting set of developments we'll talk about. I'm sure the internet will be going nuts. If Yolu said, you had me to Go Birds, I feel you. I feel you, if Yolu, but I know you're a good brother of Fanu Pa. I hope you understand, you know, Going Birds is in the spirit of being the Nukes, yo. Somebody said, it's Tyler Perry on the docket. You know, y'all want to talk Tyler Perry? We can talk Tyler Perry. I don't care about talking Tyler Perry. We have a great Tyler Perry conversation all the time, actually, in different spaces. So I'd love to have it. I'd love to have it. We can do that. We can do that here. That's right. No Philly slander here. Lots of stuff to talk about. Again, I'm excited to do all of it. Jesus Christ, you're gonna see a lot of back stretching, yo. I'm in, like, I ain't gonna say excruciating pain, because I'm excruciating was Saturday, but I am in a lot of pain. I'll just say that, a lot of pain. Anyway, let's get to it, yo. We got stories we gotta get to, and I don't want to waste nobody's time. I love talking, but I love talking about the stories. Let's start with Randy Fine. Florida's newest congressman, Randy Fine, just lit a firestorm on CNN. This happened after he defended comments where he compared Palestinians to Nazis and said Israel should do whatever it takes for, quote, unconditional surrender, even bringing up Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He said the U.S. was right to nuke Japan, and that maybe Israel should think the same way about Gaza. Sarah Sidner from CNN, wonderful journalist, pressed him hard on what exactly he meant by that statement. And he, of course, danced around it, saying, of course not, to nukes. But then he circled right back and said Gaza has a, quote, deeply wrong culture, and Israel can't live next to people who want to, quote, destroy it all the time. When Sidner reminded him that he was the one who actually mentioned the nukes, he just tried to spin it again. But, of course, the damage was done. Fine doubled down, calling Gaza evil, and said he won't apologize. Even when asked about kids and civilians dying, you know what he said? He said war is messy. Now, this is a sitting U.S. congressman. He's going to vote in the government. There are so many things wrong with this. I'm going to talk about a few of them, and we'll get some context going. But first, and I know some of you know this history and know this information, so, you know, I don't mean to be patronizing, but I want to make sure that those who are new here understand a couple of things. Again, this is night school. We're not a news report. This is night school. Randy Fine, newest congressman from Florida, is framing the conversation as if Israel is responding to Gaza, as if Israelis or the state of Israel is responding to Palestinians or to Palestine. The problem with that, of course, is that it simply isn't true. What we're seeing in Gaza since October 7th has been a genocide. In the midst of a genocidal assault on your people, you have a right to defend yourself. You have a right to resist. You have a duty to resist. So whatever he thinks Palestinians are doing, he's ignoring the fact that this is in response to an onslaught that has been disproportionate, excessive, and illegal since October 7th. Now, of course, the logical rejoinder would be, but what about October 7th? When Hamas and the other groups that were associated with Hamas invaded Israel, infiltrated, breached the border, yada, 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 they were committing a war crime. Yes, that's true. I don't think we can be intellectually honest about what happened on October 7th and deny the fact that Hamas did violate international law. They did violate certain crimes or certain laws, international law, particularly around targeting of civilians, right? But we can't start on October 7th. History didn't start on October 7th. What about October 6th? What about October 5th? And let's go on back. The Israeli presence in Gaza or around Gaza is itself illegal. It is itself a violation of international law. It is an illegal and ongoing occupation in practice, even though they're not on Gazan territory on the land itself. They left, what you say in 05, the end of 05, what you see still is Israel controlling Gaza by land, air, sea, population registry, electromagnetics, for whatever measure you want to say of control. Israel controls Gaza. Gaza has not had one single day of self-determination. And so when you have people effectively since 2006 living in an open-air prison, you have people caged inside, you have to expect a rebellion. And regardless of what you think about October 7th, whether you think it was ethical or unethical, whether you think Hamas went too far, whether you think whatever you think, there can be debates about that. There can be conversations about that. And there certainly can be critiques about that. It doesn't negate the fact that the predicate for all of this violence is Israel's settler colonial occupation of Palestine. And if we're not honest about that, then everything else will only confuse you. So Randy Fine, Congressman Fine, is starting the conversation in a very dishonest way. Mr. Fine, Randy, can I call you Randy? You are acting as if Hamas begins out of nowhere. Let's just be honest about that. Now, next thing, you say Israel can't, you said Gaza has a deeply wrong culture. What does that mean? What is the culture of Gaza? They're framing it as if Palestinians just want to go around killing people and they want death and they don't want peace and they don't want prosperity. They just want to kill Jews. And of course, Randy Fine is a Jewish American. So I'm sure he feels particularly connected to the issue of Israel-Palestine. And I'm sure he feels particularly hurt and upset and outraged even by what happened on October 7th. I think it's important to hold space for that thought while also holding space for the thought that the culture of Gaza is a culture of liberation. And as a Jewish person, someone who is part of a tradition and a culture and a national movement that has been about liberation and dignity and safety and freedom, etc., and self-determination, surely you can understand why Palestinians would be engaged in a long-term fight for their own liberation and their own national self-determination. What are we talking about here, Congressman Fine? Of course, that's the culture. It's not a culture of violence, it's not a culture of death. It's a culture of resistance, principled resistance to colonial occupation. And to say Israel can't live next to people who want to destroy it all the time. The goal of the Palestinian liberation movement is to free Palestine. That's it. And everybody wants peace, but justice has to be a precondition of peace. So let's create peace. I'm with you. Let's get the peace. I don't want anybody to feel unsafe. Sincerely, I don't want anybody to feel unsafe. But the way to avoid the feeling of unsafety is to produce conditions of freedom and liberation. And until we do that, we're not going to get nowhere. Gotta be honest about that. Now, here's the he calls Gaza evil, which again, these sort of moral judgments and condemnations and ontological claims about Palestine. It almost sounds like you're saying Palestinians are naturally evil and violent, and these are all playing into Orientalist lies about who and what people are. Anyway, then when somebody says, or Sarah Sidner says, what about the kids and civilians dying? He says war is messy. That is not an answer. Saying war is messy is not an answer. Saying war is messy is not a justification for the death of so many children in Gaza. It's not the proper response to unarmed civilians being killed. It's not the answer to hospitals being crushed and schooling being destroyed. I mean, what are we talking about here? Are we honestly now going to say that all of this is just the messiness of war? This is the same way many Israelis have described to me the Nakba itself, the great catastrophe of 1948. They've said, "Ah, oh, well, you know, it had to happen. It was ugly, but it had to happen." No one would ever, in good conscience, say that about what happened in Ukraine or Khmer Rouge. What happened to the Native Americans here? Why are we acting any different for Palestinians? War is messy is a morally repugnant response to the death of babies. What are we talking about? Randy Fine should be ashamed of himself, and he should apologize. But, you know, I don't even care about these apologies anymore. I don't want your apology, man. I just want you to actually be challenged in a way where we hold you accountable for those words. We should be, man, protest with your votes, y'all. Protest with your investments, your funding, your donations, your organizing strategy. We got to do something about this because it's crazy. But, you know, getting some fake apology from him. And he's not going to give a fake apology because in this era, being racist is popular. It's vogue. It's cool. It's hip. They love when people say racist shit. That's what they want. Anyway, all right, let's move to another story. Donald Trump is the gift that keeps on giving, because even when he ain't saying something crazy, his children are. Donald Trump Jr. went on live TV and blamed Democrats for a deadly shooting. While talking about political violence on News Nation, Trump Jr. pointed to a horrific double shooting in Minnesota, where a state lawmaker and her husband were killed. He said that the shooter was a Democrat who worked for Tim Walz. Now, Connell McShane, the host, stopped him cold and said, actually, from what I saw, he voted for your dad. And Trump Jr. was clearly caught off guard by this. Instead of just saying, oh, my bad, or hey, I completely pulled it out of my ass, he just fires back, I'll believe that when I see it. What does that even mean? Anyway, records clearly show that Vance Bolter, the shooter, once worked on a bipartisan workforce board. He had mental health issues, and he publicly backed Donald Trump in 2016. I don't want y'all to take my word for this exchange. It was rewarding to watch. I'll just say, peep this for yourselves.
Given the time we're having this conversation, do you have any thoughts on political violence and/or the political rhetoric in this country? You know what happened in Minnesota recently, but of course your family is familiar with threats and political threats.
Listen, my father's been shot at. I've been tried to, the other side has tried jailing me. They talk a lot about, the rhetoric and the violence, and yet it seems to be mostly caused by them. The 2020 summer of love did not seem like a summer of love. The politicians at high-level places encouraging people to attack my father did not seem fair. If Republicans were doing that, they'd be thrown in jail. When a Democrat does it, it's to preserve democracy. You
don't think everybody's got to tune it down a little bit or turn it down a little bit?
Listen, I think what we have to actually do, I would love to see all of that turned down, but I think I'm seeing it come from the left. Everyone talks about Minnesota, but they don't talk about the guy seems to be a leftist. It's a Minnesota politician, or guy who was appointed by the Democrat governor, vice presidential candidate for the Democrat Party, Tim Walz. The guy that committed those atrocities this weekend is a Democrat that worked for Tim Walz, that had the flyers about the No Kings thing in there.
Now, I'm not sure about that, by the way, from what I've seen. I think he voted for your dad and things like that, from what I've seen.
I'll believe that when I see it. But he was appointed by Tim Walz, a Democrat governor who's an ardent leftist pushing these things, and he attacked someone who voted against. He attacked a Democrat who voted against giving taxpayer funding and free health care to illegals across America. I mean, that doesn't seem like that should be a controversial thing to vote against. But if you're a Democrat that breaks away from the Democrats, they'll commit violence amongst themselves.
Look, I'm not here to cape for the Democrats. Plenty of reasons to call Democrats trash. The Democrats do some whack shit. The Democrats, again, this is not a defense of Democrats. It's a defense of the truth. The truth is, Donald Trump Jr. is a liar. He says things that are simply unfactual with absolutely no commitment, no fidelity, no good faith to the truth. You can make a mistake, but he just pulls it out of his butt. That's first. Second, it's absolutely true that this man voted for Donald Trump. To frame this as a left-wing guy, a leftist. No, he's not a leftist. He's a Trump supporter. A Trump supporter shot 2 people in Minnesota. Now, I don't hold Donald Trump responsible for that per se, but I do hold him responsible for the environment and the conditions that he created over the last decade that emboldens and enables people like this to exist. I think we just got to say that and be honest about that. But this isn't about, to me, just this incident, although it's an awful tragedy what happened in Minnesota, an awful tragedy. But it's also about the broader culture of violence. It's the idea that Donald Trump Jr. is raising, which is that Democrats are the violent ones, Republicans, we just want peace. It's contradicted by everything we're seeing around the country. When Black people like Ahmaud Arbery, just to use one example, are accosted by citizens, white civilians, white citizens, that's not a coincidence. And that ain't a leftist situation. When these sundown towns are operating, I mean, look at what ICE is doing to immigrants. Look at what protesters are experiencing on college campuses. All of this is the response of a increasingly authoritarian, not even just fascist, right-wing, attempting to repress free speech and action on the left. What are we talking about here? This is simple. Democrats got a lot of stuff with them, but Democrats are not endorsing or enabling the kind of violence that we're seeing on the right. It's just not true. It's just not true. Okay. Let's tell one more story. Let's talk about one more thing. Then we'll talk about another thing. The Diddy trial. Before we get to the Diddy trial, I want to say something else. If you got a question for me, drop it in. Drop a super chat in. Let me know what you want to know. Ask me a question. I'll answer it tonight. If you send in a super thanks, super chat, super sticker, whatever it is, Drop something in, I will answer it. Oh, and Henry Jackson's right. That Senator Alex Padilla is another example of the kind of repression of this administration. I mean, it ain't hard to prove. That's all I'll say. It ain't hard to prove. But let's get to it. Let's get to this other story, because this Diddy story is interesting. We're going to do a lot of coverage of the Diddy trial as we enter month 2 or whatever. Week 6 is probably better way of putting it. The sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs just took another wild turn. The only black man on the jury was booted on Monday for lying about where he lived. Juror 6 told the court that he lived in the Bronx, but paperwork and court debate hinted that he might have been living in New Jersey the whole time. The judge said flat out the man wasn't being honest and might have, quote, shaded answers just to get on the jury. For the 41-year-old black juror was swapped out. He's no longer on the jury, and he was replaced by a 57-year-old white man from Westchester. Meanwhile, prosecutors brought out a U.S. attorney's paralegal to walk through Diddy's assistant's messages, some about setting up one of those infamous hotel nights. Data from credit cards and texts were also shown to back the government case. The feds, they said they're nearly done. Their side of the story could be wrapped up as soon as tomorrow, Wednesday, or maybe this Friday. And after that is Diddy's turn. So this juror being kicked off, if the guy lives in New Jersey, he shouldn't be on the jury pool. He should be in a juror. Shouldn't be on the jury. He just shouldn't, right? And if he lied about it, people don't usually work that hard to get on a jury. Now, again, I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying people usually don't. So you hear a black man say, yo, I'm working my ass off to get on this jury, or it's implied that he's working hard to get on a jury because he clearly lives in another state. He's actually coming to New York every day from New Jersey to be on this case. You start to think he has an investment in being on this case. And yeah, I get it. Doesn't mean he's not fair or impartial. He could be totally fair and impartial, right? I mean, part of why you might want to get on this so you can write a book later. Doesn't mean you're trying to cheat the system, but it could mean you're trying to cheat the system, right? It wouldn't be unreasonable for somebody to say you're desperately trying to get on this case. Maybe you are trying to either railroad Diddy, send him away, regardless of the evidence, or you're trying to free Diddy, regardless of the evidence. Either way, it's not okay. So I understand why people will want him off the jury. You don't want an activist juror. You know what I'm saying? You don't want somebody. You don't want somebody who has a reason for wanting to be on there, because it suggests that that they can't be impartial. So I just think it's important for us to say that. The other piece of this is that there are rumors, and this is where I need to actually get more information. But what my sources have told me, and again, I have not verified this part, is that this was the same juror that Diddy was warned to not stop making eye contact with. In other words, he's trying to connect with the juror by looking or staring or whatever. And this is the response, right? That the judge had to find a way to stop this because they thought Diddy was getting some kind of hookup. Again, do I think that that's true? I have no idea. I don't think it's true or not true. I don't have an opinion on it. Yeah, that's all I can say. I don't have an opinion on it. I think though that there's more here. One question that I have is specifically, what does a fair trial look like? What does the jury of your peers look like? You know, a lot of times when people hear jury of your peers, people think, oh, well, it should be people who look like me. Like if I go to trial, it should be 12 black men, or at least 12 black people, and a lot of them black. These are all things that people think. That's not necessarily what it means. And clearly it doesn't mean it in this case, right? Because the brother Diddy has one black man on the jury. Just something to think about what your peer means. It's not a racialized frame. You're not guaranteed to have black people or even gendered necessarily. Now, of course, there's an argument for if you have no black people in your jury. I mean, there's an argument for, hey, this is whack. This is not okay. This is signaling something that we need to be honest about or figure out. So again, I don't want to ignore that. I don't want to ignore that. There's more I want to say about this, but I'm reluctant because there's just a little more information I need about what's going on in this Diddy trial that I don't have, simply because I haven't spoken to the inside reporter, to people who are covering this case from the inside. I have all the news. I've been covering it. I've been responsible as a journalist, but I don't necessarily have all the information that's being kind of leaked to the public, and I slowly, because if I could get that, I'd be saying some more, but I just want to make sure I have all the information. This white man, 57-year-old from Westchester, does his presence make Diddy more likely or less likely to be what's the word? Convicted? It's a good question. It's a fair question. Demographically speaking, the answer is probably less, right? But also don't assume that this Diddy trial isn't just going to come down to racial affiliation or racial solidarity. It's also going to come down to whether people see Diddy's. Let me take one more step back. To me, Diddy's guilty. There's no way Diddy's not guilty. I think he's guilty in both the letter and the spirit of the law. Whether you can have your own opinions about, we can all have our own opinions about other pieces of this, but at the end of the day, he seems to have been, he seems to have violated the law pretty clearly. So I think Diddy is going to be found guilty, regardless of who this juror is. But, you know, one of the things that's happening is, you know, there's questions around sexuality, there's questions around sexual proclivity, which is what you're into. There's other pieces here. And a 57-year-old white man from Westchester will likely be more conservative in some of those things than maybe a brother from the Bronx who's 41. But also maybe not. There's some black people, church-going black people, who absolutely might be like, I don't know nothing about that life Diddy talking about. Whereas you might have somebody who's more liberal and fluid on the other side. That's what I'm saying. You don't know. There's just no way to know. And so I wouldn't assume this is a railroad thing for Diddy. I think it's just an unfortunate situation. The other thing here is, how did dude get caught? Right? That's the other part of this. Because it's not like they did. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking, but I will say, it seems that dude brought this on himself. He was yapping too much. Apparently, he told people that he lived in New Jersey, and somebody went back and said something about it. So dude brought it on himself. If you want to be on the Diddy trial that bad, stop talking so much. If you want to be able to write a tell-all book later, stop talking so much. Now, this also raises the race question. You know, Diddy's legal team has been talking about race the entire time. Not the entire time, but they've said that, you know, there's concerns about the racial makeup of the jury. It's a reasonable question to ask. Whether you think Diddy's human garbage or not, whether you love Diddy or hate Diddy, whether you think he's an angel or a devil, doesn't matter. If whatever you think of Diddy, this juror needs to be blacker, browner, something. And the judge basically said, look, I think raising race is an interesting and important thing to do. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not mad at that. However, I can't take the replacement jurors' race into account when making this decision. In other words, I can't say you're not allowed to be on the jury because you're white. right? That would not be okay. There's something else I need y'all to see, and I want to pull it up, but the internet is not cooperating with me. Let me see if I can pull it up a different way and send it to myself. You know what? I think I'm too funky for myself. Here, I did it. I got it. We got him. I want y'all to see this. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to pull it up. But give me about 30 seconds. I want to talk about Dr. Umar and his comments about the Hebrew Israelites in Gaza and Israel. Let's do that in a second. I'll be right back. Stay right here.
Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe.
Hey family, I'm back. It's your brother here, man. Trying to load up this video audio and just take a quick 10 seconds to breathe. I appreciate y'all. I know y'all asked what happened to the break music. We're gonna find it. Y'all, so that y'all ain't gotta hear that. Yeah, that ain't it. I get it. That ain't it. But we're gonna do something. But in the meantime, man, it's just so much going on. What else do y'all want to talk about? I want to shout some people out while I load some stuff up. I want to thank Ed Ladawi, who said, normalize calling October 7th the Gaza Ghetto Uprising or the October 7th Revolt. The Gaza Ghetto Uprising, of course, is both an attempt to sort of name the resistance of October 7th, and also it's an allusion, of course, to the Warsaw Ghetto Uprisings in Nazi Germany. So I think that's an important thing to think about. Rolando said, free Mumia and Luigi. I hear you, Playboy. Isaac Hempseed is always our brother, generous to just beyond description. Thank you for gifting 5 memberships to the channel. 5. You have no idea how much that means to us. You have no idea what that does for us. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for that, my brother, because it means so much. I'm making a banner right now. Let's get to it, y'all. We got so much important stuff to talk about. I want to shout out Hannah Heptu, who said, please watch the interview I gave about Ticket Eye genocide to Matt Leash, Sam Sater's producer. Ticket Eye is leading still be today's episode to Left Reckoning. I will watch it. Hopefully I can share it as I watch it. And just thank you for staying on this issue. I don't know your position on Ticket Eye, but I hope everyone has at least started to think about what's happening in the Horn of Africa in general. Jazzy LP said, will you show us a little of your preaching at St. Sabina? First of all, shout out to you, Jazzy LP, Dallas's finest. I'm going to post the whole video in 24 hours, 48 hours. Hopefully, you'll see the whole thing at at Sabina. It was a time. We had a great time. So I'll make sure I post the whole thing. I'm not afraid to. I'm not afraid to. Let's see if let me see if I can do something else too. I want to get to this this interesting, I mean, super interesting conversation that's been had on the internet about Dr. Umar, and I thought it was interesting because people are responding to his take on the Hebrew Israelites, which I think is interesting because some of it is born out of ignorance. Some of it is born out of, you know what? Let me not talk in code or be cryptic. Let's get to it. Dr. Umar supports Black Hebrew Israelites after the Iran strike. As you know, for the last week or so, there has been an intense ratcheting up of violence in the Middle East. Specifically, we have seen Israel strike the northeast part of Tehran, Iran, which has caused a reaction from the Iranian military and the Iranian government more broadly. And we're starting to see what is a very dangerous situation ratchet up. In the midst of that, Dr. Umar Johnson, Ifatunde, Prince of Pan-Africanism, put this note on his stories, which I thought was interesting. He said, "I pray for the safety of our African Hebrew Israelite family during this Arab-Israeli conflict. May the Most High keep them protected." That's what Umar said. And there were people who were not happy about that. There were people who were outraged by his comments. I think that many of the people who were outraged by Umar's comments misunderstood what he was saying and or willfully misrepresented what he was saying. And so I want to talk about that just a little bit, break it down just a little bit, and give some context. First, Umar is calling for the safety of African Hebrew Israelites during this conflict. Many people thought mistakenly that he was talking about the Ethiopians, also known as the Beta Israel. The Beta Israel are the Ethiopians who were mostly, not all, but mostly brought to Israel in the mid-1980s under Operation Moses and Solomon a little bit. And these people came through more or less what was Aliyah. They made the same religious migration, they exercised the same right of return that has been part of Israeli law since 1951. And they are Israeli citizens. They are fully entrenched in Israeli society, and they are, they're Israelis. They're Israeli Jews. Jewish is their nationality or their national identity on their Israeli citizenship card. You know, there's nationality and their citizenship. Their nationality is Jewish, just like everybody else who is an Israeli citizen who identifies as Jewish, as opposed to the Druze or the Arabs. Anyway, all that to say, by the way, the right of return was July 1950, not 1951, forgive me. And so the Ethiopians are occupiers, they're purveyors of violence to the Palestinian people. The Ethiopians are, they're Israeli settlers, just like everybody else. That's not who Umar was talking about. He didn't say he was talking about them. The people who are criticizing him for supporting the Ethiopians are simply, it just shows how little they know. The great John Henry Clark said, the more you talk, the more you show what you haven't read, right? The people who are challenging Umar for that, for supporting Ethiopian Israelis, they're just wrong. He did not say that. He said African Hebrew Israelites. The African Hebrew Israelites are an entirely different community. They live in the Negev or the Naqab. They live in mostly in Dimona, or they're based in Dimona. They, many of them live everywhere now. But when Ben Ami Ben Israel started a movement in Chicago that eventually moved to Liberia, that eventually moved to modern day Israel. And they came there, but they were not accepted as Jews. They were not accepted as returners. They weren't accepted as citizens. And this group of Black Americans who moved to Chicago and are now multiple generations in Israel, they're fighting for their identity. They're fighting for their safety. They're fighting for their right to exist in Israel. Many have been deported or gotten deportation notices in the last 6 to 9 months. You can look right here on the channel and see the conversation. It's a different group of people. Now, I have spent time in Israel with the African Hebrew Israelites. I've stayed in the home that they provide for visitors. I've stayed in other places there. I've done research on them. I have a whole documentary that deals with them in great detail, and it tells their whole history. So I have, the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, which is their full name, the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, who happen to live in Dimona, they are a different group of people. That is not who Umar is talking about. I see Van Lathan say, I'm going to have to ask you to back up. I will, brother. And if you want, you can come on. If you want to ask some direct questions, you can jump on now. No pressure, but if you want to, shoot me a text and I'll shoot you the link. But it's important to understand this, and we'll talk about all of this. The African Hebrew Israelites of Dimona have been fighting for citizenship in Israel. One could argue that they are colonizers too. One could argue that they are settlers too. And while they are being mistreated, and they're certainly being mistreated on the grounds of race, and among other things, and the white supremacy is governing this, I agree with all of that. I think someone could argue, and they have argued, that the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem are no better than anybody else. There's an argument against that. They don't have the same power as the rest of the Israeli citizenry, including the Ethiopians, and they don't have the same goals and vision. There's an argument for that as well. But I think in defense of Dr. Umar, I think it's important to understand that Umar is a Pan-Africanist. And what he's saying is that Africans anywhere deserve our support and solidarity. Not Africans anywhere deserve our support and solidarity no matter what they say. He's not going to support something unethical. He's not going to support something unprincipled just because they're African. Africans can be criticized and challenged too. That's why he'd be talking about that coon chip. And he ain't wrong. He's 100% right. But there is something to be said about a Pan-African saying, hey, I'm supporting the existence of African people everywhere. And I think that's why he's supporting the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. And to be clear, the AHIJ, the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, they do support Africa. There are other Israelite groups, and we talked to Captain Tazariak right here on the channel, who talks about Africa in a different way. He has a different posture on Africa than the AHIJ, who affirm Africa, who love Africa, and who see themselves as part of the African diaspora. And in fact, they see themselves as sitting. They see Israel as Northeast Africa. They frame Africa as, Israel, as Northeast Africa. They say it sits on the African tectonic plate. They're looking at even Israel through the lens of Africanity. That's different, and I can see why Umar would support them. And look, I have a level of admiration for the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. I spend time with them. I know them. Again, I talk to them. I check in on them. I get it. At the end of the day, I still think that they are colonizers of the Palestinian people. And so I don't I don't support their end goal or end game, but I share Umar's prayer for their safety. I do. And that's the Pan-Africanist in me as well. Umar himself, though, offered an analysis or a response to people who thought that he should be more pro-Palestinian. And that was said to him in direct response to this what do you call it? This critique, this ostensible critique of him. And here's what I'm trying to find the actual. I have it here, but I want to see if there's a clear I'll pull it up on my phone and just read it. I was trying to find a way to share it with y'all, but I don't know how to do all that fancy stuff. I'm an old black man now, so y'all just going to deal with my way of reading it. Let me pull up this thing from Umar. So I want you to hear in his own words how he talks about this. But again, I think much of the outrage or the criticism of Umar was unfair because I think it was colored by an unfair reading and really uninformed reading of Umar's statement. In other words, y'all didn't know what he was saying, and instead of looking up what he was saying, y'all judged him, and that seems to be problematic. It was very reactionary. Now, again, there are people who think that the Hebrew Israelites who live in Jerusalem don't deserve our support and praise. And again, that's a different conversation. But at least let's have an informed one. I have my own thought on that that I'm happy to have. We can have that conversation too. Y'all got me looking. I'm just sitting there looking at. I'm wondering why it ain't popping. I keep looking up Van Lathan when I should be looking up Dr. Umar. That's me being distracted by Van Lathan's foolishness. He's disrupting the class a little bit. Here we go. So Dr. Umar posted this on his Instagram, so you can check it out. You can check it out for yourself. And also, oh my God, my brother Dash just dropped 50 Canadian bucks. Yo, that's real, man. They definitely. I'll take Canadian bucks over Ian bucks. I'll take anything over. I'll take the Milwaukee bucks, Usher bucks. I don't care. I'll take any of them over Ian bucks. Them shit is worthless. Dash, I appreciate you. Assalamu alaikum. I appreciate you, Ahi. I appreciate the work you're doing, and I appreciate what y'all doing over on the JBTV side. And thank you for this generous donation, even in Canadian money. Let me read Umar's response. I think this is important. I think it's super important to read what Umar again actually said. I always want to represent people properly. Someone he reposted a text someone sent him that said, "I thought you would have the sense to be pro-Palestinian." He said, "Good Garvey Day, my beautiful. Reading comprehension disabled." That's kind of funny. Good Garvey Day, my beautiful reading comprehension disabled and politically uninformed Black queen. I don't support anyone except African people, as I am too busy focused on African liberation and redemption to be worried about other people's problems. Now, this is where it gets interesting when you think about the Hebrew Israelites as part of African liberation. I simply offered support to and will continue to stand in solidarity with my African Hebrew Israelite brothers, sisters, elders, and children who reside in Dimona, Israel, which is what I told y'all. I said he's talking about Dimona. They are members of the Black race, and I am concerned about their safety amidst this war that is brewing between the Pale Man and the Arabs. I offer the same concern for the indigenous Africans of the Middle Eastern states who are similarly caught up in a crisis they have nothing to do with. I pray for the protection of them. If this means that I support Zionism and white supremacy, then you clearly have much more to learn. I agree with most of what Brother Umar said, and I think that he's right to make some distinctions here. Where I probably see it a little differently is that the African Hebrew Israelites of Dimona, their children are in the Israeli army now. This isn't like 20 years ago. After the show of strength, which is a big moment where the community, what we call the Kufar, where the Kufar stood up to the Israeli prime minister and to the Israeli military. After that, things started getting good. You know, the prime ministers several prime ministers, including Netanyahu, of of Israel have shown up to the kuffar. They've shown up to the Israelite community. They're seen as like a flower in the desert now. They're seen as this beautiful, amazing community. And because of that, they're getting a lot of the benefits of Israeli citizenship. What happened was they got permanent residency, many of them, and then their children joined the Israeli military. When you join the Israeli military, you get citizenship. Not only do you get citizenship, but your parents can get citizenship. Because once you're a citizen, you can get your parents' citizenship. What's my point? My point is they literally traded their children for membership into the Israeli society. And so while I have deep love for many people in the African Hebrew Israelite community of Jerusalem and Dimona, and I support their Pan-African and Pan-Africanist vision, in many ways, they are bound up in Zionism. And even if you look at their older stuff where they were disagreeing with the Israeli state, they were still arguing for Zionism. They just wanted to be the stewards of the Zionism, which gets tricky when you start using the Bible as the argument for it. And so I totally get what he's saying. Obviously, Dr. Umar doesn't support Zionism. He doesn't support white supremacy. He's trying to stand in unwavering solidarity with African people around the planet. I struggle with the Africans in Israel, some of them. I mean, there are Eritrean brothers and sisters, Sudanese brothers and sisters who are on the right side of history, who are simply fighting for survival. But just like the Ethiopians, the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, I think, have many of them have been caught up in the settler colonial vision of Israel and of Zionism rather than the liberatory one of African people. So I think it creates a tension that we should talk about. And again, that's not a criticism of Umar at all. It's an invitation for all of us to think really in real robust ways about identity and power and how these things are tied up. Anyway, I just thought it was a cool conversation. And there's nothing I like more than talking about race in the Middle East as a scholarly nerd. So, and I'm working on books on all of it, the Afro-Palestinians. At some point I'll be writing books on the Hebrew Israelites. And of course, if you want to read a great book on the African Hebrew Israelites of Dimona, you should read Thin Description by John Jackson. And there's others. There's another great one called, it's on my shelf here. I'll tell you in a second. It's by an Israeli scholar, a very Markowitz is the last name. But Markowitz has a book on the Hebrew Israelites as well. So we'll get to it. I'll tell you all about that later. But there's a lot of interesting work. And y'all should read on the Ethiopians, the Beta Israel, who some of y'all mistakenly or racistly call the Falashin or the Falashin. But we'll talk about that another time. Other questions before we go? Henry Jackson said, am I misunderstanding that was a conditional agreement that the children had to enter? It's an interesting question. What I have been told directly by the Israelites is that they wanted their children in the military. Not that they had to. Not that it was a quid pro quo, but that they wanted their children in the military. I think there's some distinction without a difference, some shading of meaning here. At the end of the day, I don't think they get as far or get where they got without their kids joining the Israeli occupation forces. Mo Reset, it's not Pan-Africanism to want to live in the Middle East. Let's talk about that. I'm not sure what you mean by that. So I don't actually have an answer to that because I don't know. I really don't know what you mean. DJ Thirst said, my last time bothering you've been emailing for 2 months, even a no email would be accepted. I don't know. I apologize. I don't know what you're talking about. I want to look really quickly in my email for a DJ Thirst. I don't see anything. I honestly don't know. I'm not being dismissive or disrespectful. I sincerely don't know what you're talking about, brother. And maybe I should. Like, it's possible you told me before and I don't remember. I would own that, but I don't know what you're talking about. Is there another name? Oh, okay. I see what you sent me. PR. We'll look a different way. And to be clear, you're not bothering me. I'm buried in work and have been. Okay, I'll send you a note about this. No, I don't want to read this online because I don't want to give the wrong impression. But I appreciate what you sent me, and I'll do my best to give you a response. It is ultimately going to be not a no, but a not right now. That's the short answer. But I appreciate the offer. But I'll try to send you a note soon to give you the reasons why. It's not about you. It's just about the nature of the request, and it's just logistically not possible. But I appreciate you, brother. Let's see. Wouldn't white supremacist settler colonial project be antithetical to Pan? Yes, Pan-Africanism is a humanistic vision. I think that's why this gets complicated, because the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem are advocating. They're not advocating for settler colonialism ultimately, in terms of how can I put this? In the abstract, they're not, but the means that they've chosen to get to where they think they're going to be, which requires a kind of spiritual leap of faith as well, ultimately ties them in and really more deeply entrenches settler colonialism. So some of it comes down to sort of how you analyze the world. And I think because they use the Bible as their primary way of analyzing the world, we're going to arrive in different places. We're going to think about this differently than they will. Some of us will look at it differently than they will. So that's all. Let me see if there's any more questions before we go. We're about to go, though. When do we get night school branded pink highlighters as a merch option? Soon, perhaps. We got a bunch of merch stuff we need to do. There's a long list of things I need to do. That's not what I wanted to. Pink highlighter. That's fair. That's fair. Pink highlighter. I had another question in here I'm trying to pull up, but I can't finish it. Are they serving the Israeli military currently? Yes. Yeah. You got to remember, the Israeli military is a conscripted service. In other words, everybody got to do it. 3 years for the men, 2.5 for the women. I think it's changed a little bit, it's dropped a little bit, but everybody got to join the military, and these kids are old enough and they're joining the military. And then you got generations of people, so there's always new children being born. There's always new people who are about to join the military, and those people got to do it. So there's always and the Hebrew Israelites, look, they've been influential in the military too. Not they obviously are often put in undesirable roles because of racism, anti-blackness, etc. They also have introduced veganism in a lot of ways. They've spread veganism throughout Israeli society, but especially the military. So that's something to think about as well. I mean, it's been an interesting adjustment, is all I'll say. And integration is probably a better word. Anyway, I think that's it. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for watching. Thank you for supporting. I couldn't be more happy. I couldn't be more proud of who we are as a community and the work that we do. The work that really you do. Let's talk again soon, like tomorrow, because that's what we do. We talk every night. We got some special guests this week too. I'm gonna try and get Van up on this joint and a couple other people. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation for another time. In the meantime, see you soon. All right, family. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you're so inclined, hit the join button and become part of the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. We appreciate it when you do. When you hit the like button, you show the YouTube algorithms that corporate media ain't the only game in town. That's important. When you hit that subscribe button, you increase our social media footprint, which gives us allows us to cover more ground and to do more things. It's super exciting to think about. And of course, when you're doing the join button, you become a monthly paid member of the channel, which gives us the financial stability that we need to do what we do. Look, it's June. Now it's the 18th. It was the 17th all day. Now it's the 18th. We need your help. It's the middle of the month. We need people to donate. We need people to support family. This is not an enterprise I do to get rich. It's because I believe in community education. I believe in global classrooms. I believe in challenging the status quo. And I believe in radical and critical pedagogy. I believe in all of it. That's why I do this. But I don't have a corporate media outlet underwriting me. I don't have mainstream media outlets putting checks in my bank account. I'm doing this on the muscle. I'm doing it with my money and your generosity. So please, family, please consider donating something. If you can't join, obviously I want people to join the channel. And if people who are already members of the channel, I want you to raise to the next tier. That would be amazing. But if you can't do any of those things, at least make a one-time donation. Consider it like tuition for the month. Even if you come every day, consider it tuition for the month. Go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. You know I love Cash App the most, Venmo second. But regardless, no amount is too small. I promise you, no amount is too small. I also assure you, no amount is too big. If you drop $1 million and do it, we could use it. Sincerely, we could use $1 million. We could use 50,000 if someone has 50,000. We could use 10,000 if someone could just drop a check for 5,000. Any of it would be, you have no idea how much we'd appreciate it. That said, the ideal situation right now would be that if everybody watching right now were to donate $5, if everybody watching this, regardless of the platform, we'll go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle and drop $5 in, we will be able to meet and maybe even exceed our financial goals for the month, which, you know, they're steep, but they're worth it because y'all are worth it. So let's do it. Support each other. Be good to each other. Love each other. I'll see y'all soon. Peace.